theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive with Em and Warren.
Suzy Wrong, welcome back from holidays.
How wonderful to be back with you. How are we?
We're better now that you're back. Got to say that, Suzy.
We missed you.
Thank you. So nice to be back. After a great holiday in Singapore, where I spent about 10 days just eating everything in sight.
Your Instagram was actually, honestly, very, very jealousy-inducing.
And, coming back home and eating normal, frugal food at home has been really tough.
What food did you miss the most in Singapore?
Oh, I don't know. It's not one thing.
It's everything.
It's everything, and because there's so much there that we don't have here, I just had a great time, and people were like, old friends were so keen to take me to places that they discovered, they're very funny. Like they think that, we're meeting someone veggie for dinner. We've got to find a place that only does veggie. So they kind of went through a bit of trouble for that. And I discovered lots of places where I kind of have, the full pick of the menu to eat, and that was such a great time.
Amazing, yeah. You can get veggie options, but I love that they've gone, you know what? No, we'll get you the whole restaurant.
Yeah, and I think it's become kind of trendy. I don't remember there to be so many restaurants like that. I think same in Australia, same in Sydney and Melbourne. The last few years, it's just become, like people opening restaurants that cater to, a very specific either vegetarian or vegan diet. And I think that is a nice trend for people like me.
Definitely. Now, Suzy, we are going today be talking about TREVOR, which is the musical streaming on Disney Plus. Tell us about it.
TREVOR is an early teen in middle school, a huge fan of Diana Ross, and terribly excited about playing all the characters from Fame at his school's talent show. This, however, is 1981, and being an effeminate, artistic boy makes one stand out in the worst possible way. Now streaming on Disney Plus is TREVOR, the musical, a new Broadway show based on an Oscar-winning short film from the 80s. Unlike the several young people's programs we had recently covered on Joy Drive Tuesdays, this is a story from the past, long before Pride had entered our schools. There were no real allies, only hostility and bullying descending upon TREVOR from all directions. Teachers, students, parents, and the church are all homophobic and toxic. He has a small number of friends who are not completely hateful, but they don't offer enough support when things get rough. And surprisingly, things do get pretty rough in the final moments. And that is where I found myself bawling my eyes out after being very skeptical about some overly conventional theatre making. TREVOR, the musical, starts off terribly predictable, and although entertaining, I found a lot of it to be quite cringy. When things got dark, however, I was totally sold. The lead child star, Holden William Hagelberger, isn't the best singer or dancer on Broadway, but his acting really, really shines in the last minutes. TREVOR's story is heartbreaking and reminds me of my own days at school as a Gen Xer. I did wonder if there is great value for this type of trauma to be repeated yet again, but TREVOR the musical reminds me that the rate of suicide ideation among trans people especially remains alarmingly high. Em and Warren, if you managed to get to the end, I'm sure you shed a few tears yourself.
I don't know. Well, I know that I didn't cry necessarily. I think what you mentioned about the singing and acting definitely kind of was a little bit jarring for me. But what I did do was a bunch of research about the musical, because I was like, where's this coming from? And, it's set in the 80s. So why are we here in 2022? But actually it was made as a result of a short film that I also watched, which you sent to us kindly, Suzy. And that short film actually was one of the catalysts for the TREVOR project being initiated, which I think is absolutely incredible and so important.
Yeah, I love it. I love both the musical and the short film. I mean, it is tricky. Like for people who are not sort of diehard musical fans, I think, musicals can be challenging, but I thought when the story sort of became really solid, I was really into it.
Suzy, I must admit I'm not a diehard musical fan. I enjoy them when I do go, but I don't like them when they're filmed for TV. Something for me doesn't work. I don't know if it's because it's a different set of production standards or whatever, or whether I just like the audience atmosphere. But I thought it was good that, Disney is embracing some LGBTIQ plus content. I really like that. I found myself, Suzy, fast-forwarding through a lot of the songs, and I did love the young cast, and I thought the lead, Holden William, was really great, but to me, there just wasn't like the power of the voices that I would expect from a musical, so I did fast-forward through a lot of the songs, which, of course, makes up a lot of the story, and like you, I found the story a bit predictable as well, and a little bit stereotypical in terms of how it portrayed gay men, but then I went and watched, the Oscar-winning 23-minute film Trevor, and I know we're not reviewing it, but I was so engaged and I absolutely loved it, and I guess it sort of explained what was happening a little bit better. But going back to the Disney Plus musical, I liked his attraction to his best friend Pinky, and I think that kind of touched me because when I was a kid, I had a best friend who ended up getting ridiculed for liking the guy that they suspected to be gay, and then dumped me as a friend. So I was quite touched by that, as well as the traumatic event at the end of it. But overall, I did find myself skimming through it.
Yeah, I think the performance of it is quite hard to take because they were clearly performing for a very, very large theatre, taking care of the people in the cheap seats right at the back. The acting was very, very huge. And sometimes, when the camera goes in close, it is very jarring. So I think that's one of the challenges of watching filmed live performances. I did think that when it came to the really hard stuff at the end, the last maybe 15-20 minutes, I did think that the acting was really, really solid. It felt really, really authentic. And it kind of tells me that it doesn't matter how big your acting is. If it's real, it's real. And I did think that the child actor was able to tap into something very, very real and very, very painful. Because I did watch it and think, oh, he's not the best performer. Why did he get the central role? But when those bits came out that required him to be so sort of portraying so much anguish, I thought he did such a great job. But then, the complicated thing is like, why are they making this now? Who needs this story now? Like, we've had such a great time looking at, contemporary high school stories, and it looks like such a different world. So I was wondering if those, better versions of high school life, are they just sort of fantasy now? Oh,
or are we so out of touch with what it's like because it's so long ago?
Yeah. So maybe there is value because I'm sure there are kids who are having a hard time, hopefully not as hard as Trevor has had it. And maybe for them to see this is a good way to sort of find some way to relate.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this. I do think that I like the choice to have it be actually, children of the right age. They're meant to be, 13, 14, 15, sort of thereabouts. And I kind of hate that there's this trope in Hollywood, when you watch Netflix dramas or, things like Euphoria and stuff like that, the people that are meant to be 13 look literally 35 because they actually are 35. And so it's really hard to watch them as like a young adult, story when you're like, he is 35. I don't understand. So I will say that I found it refreshing that the kids were actually kids. And that is obviously more musical theatre than it is TV and film.
Well,
because
and also they didn't really have to do anything outrageous, did they?
True. Euphoria, you're right. Actually, that makes total sense about Euphoria specifically. But even like, I don't know, the kissing booth or things that are like really PG, they're still casting like 30-year-olds, 25-year-olds as like 17-year-olds. And I don't know. It confuses me, Suzy. Help.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens to the cast now that they've done this.
Yeah, totally.
How about the Diana Ross? I feel like we need to talk about the Diana Ross.
We need to talk about...
You can't replace Diana Ross. I must admit, I hit the fast-forward button when she came out. Seriously.
I wrote my note. This is verbatim. I don't know if it's because she was playing Diana Ross, but I thought she could have been stronger.
Yeah.
And I think it's because she was playing Diana Ross. Like, who can play Diana Ross? No one.
I don't think anyone can play Diana Ross. I did love it when they added so many Diana Ross songs. In fact, the first song was a Diana song, and I was like, oh yes, is this all made up of Diana songs? But it wasn't. But she does have a substantial part in this.
You get the real ones in the 23-minute Oscar-winning one.
Oh yeah, the real recordings.
Which I think does kind of make a difference.
I think it makes a big difference, particularly when you're talking about someone like Diana Ross. I just want to mention, if any of this conversation has upset you, don't forget you can get some support at joy.org.au/support. There's a whole list of resources that you can access. joy.org.au/support. Suzy, what are we watching for? You're not here next week, but the week after.
Yeah, next week I'm traveling to a faraway fantasy land named Melbourne.
We know it. We've heard of it.
Yeah,
we can't wait to see you.
To do a bit of work on a television program that I'm writing on. So I won't be able to be on the show, but the week after, I'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about Uncoupled on Netflix, starring Neil Patrick Harris as a middle-aged gay man returning to the dreaded dating scene. That's Uncoupled on Netflix.
Suzy, when will we see you next?
We'll see you in
Tuesday.
This is complicated.
When will Em and I see you?
I'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Suzy.